I'm Jenna Gage, and this is Life Take Two. Every once in a while, I do videos on mixed faith marriages, and I've noticed that there is nothing else that I do online that gets me more hateful comments than my mixed faith marriage videos. And I've been bottling this up for a long time. Today, I want to talk about it. In case you're new here, thanks for stopping by. I know there's a ton of stuff that you could be watching right now. I'm really honored that you paused on me. I'm Jenny Gage, and here on my Life Take Two page, I explore how I escaped 44 years in a Mormon trad wife life and rebuilt over here on the other side. We just launched our podcast last night. We've been working on behind the scenes for so long with Julia and Beth. I'll link in the description. Our new podcast is Under Her Eye, and it's three women diving into the patriarchal systems that keep the whole world propped up. Before I dive into the meat and potatoes of my topic today, let me share with you just a little bit of my story with Kev. We have a big video that we've done that we're going to release a little bit closer to our anniversary, which is in just a couple weeks. We met 6 years ago this month, which is mind-boggling, the journey that we've been on together. So let me just give you a little bit of a sneak peek into me and Kev. Kevin and I met after my divorce, after I escaped 24 years of domestic violence. And Kev originally followed my divorce podcast that was over here on YouTube. And eventually we would meet. I'm not going to give away everything if you don't already know. If you do know, please don't put it in the comments. Let me just have a little bit of mystery for my new viewers. So I had left the Mormon church 2 weeks before my marriage ended. And Jake and I transitioned right into Christianity. Like, we didn't even miss a single Sunday. It was like we left the church the next week. We were at a Christian church, and that Christian church was actually a big reason why both of us left Mormonism, because our experience in just this truly kind, loving, grace-filled community with a pastor who really stayed away from hellfire and damnation. Like, I don't even know if the pastor of that church believes in hell or not. It was this healing balm that I very much needed. It is also difficult for people to transition out of high demand religions like Mormonism, Islam, Jehovah's Witness, etc., because your whole world is just tipped upside down, that sometimes you need a little bit of a safety net in the form of a religious infrastructure to help you step out of that lifestyle. So I always say that my Christian church was kind of training wheels for me to be able to just leave the Mormon church completely behind. So when Kevin and I met, I was faithful, going to church every Sunday Christian. And I believed that the Mormon church had kept me from knowing the real Jesus. Like, that was my running narrative at the time. Because of Mormonism, I had the Book of Mormon. I didn't have a real relationship with Jesus. So yay, now I'm not Mormon anymore. I can get to know Jesus. And I dove pretty headlong into Christianity. Again, a time of a lot of instability for me, and it was exactly what I needed at the time. So I have absolutely no regret. I was going to church every Sunday, sometimes twice. Sometimes I'd stay for a small group afterwards. I did a Wednesday night women's Bible study. I did a single parents Bible study. I also went to like every worship thing. My kids were really heavily involved. Basically, what I did is I turned this non-denominational Christian church into what the Mormon church had been in my life. I made my own like high demand religion. And it was kind of interesting. It was an interesting era in my life. Enter Kevin. Kevin came into my life right in the middle of Christian Jenny phase. And our church, our worship, our faith, saying prayers together was a lot of the foundation that our relationship was built on in the early days. Some of our very first dates were going to church. We listened to worship music all the time. We did a small group together. Like, we totally immersed ourselves in our Christian relationship, very similar to the way that church had been the foundation in my first marriage. Church had been the foundation of everything in my life forever, because I was born and indoctrinated in a religious structure. And at that point, I just couldn't see a life without religion. An interesting thing happens, though, when you've deconstructed one religion. You learn to kind of tune out elevation of motion and like cognitive dissonance, and you kind of put on your thinking cap. And once you've worn that thinking cap, it's really easy then to apply critical thinking and things like requiring evidence, and also being able to look inward and look at what truly resonates with you to other systems. So once I learned to critically think about Mormonism and demand evidence and look at how things resonated with me particularly, then I applied that to friends groups. I applied that to my multi-level marketing job. I applied that to other culty like things in my life, my family system, and ultimately that critical thinking would begin to apply itself to Christianity. I was Christian for 4.5 years. For most of that, I began to have doubts. Much of Christian mythology just simply didn't resonate with me. I had as many problems reading the Bible in my home to my children and teaching them lessons that I found despicable. Let me give you just a couple of examples. Everything in the entire Old Testament, just literally everything. And then a lot of stuff in the New Testament too, a lot of Revelation and a lot of Paul's writing. There's a lot of hate in the Christian Bible that I hadn't seen, and it didn't resonate with me. And very quickly, within 4.5 years, I lost my faith in Christianity. Now, a big catalyst to that too was my participation in a Christian church. I left Mormonism as a full believer because of their hateful stance towards LGBTQ members. I believed the church was true, and I walked out of church one Sunday very publicly, which has led to the loss of absolutely everything in my life as my Mormon family and those around me and people publicly have fought against me. So I had great consequences for that bold action. It was one of the most integrity-filled acts of pure alignment that I have ever engaged in, second only to kicking my douchebag of a husband out of the home the night that he left us for the very last escort. And I began to see that same hatred towards the others in Christianity, and it was just absolutely unacceptable to me. Let me just give you one example. We had a sign language interpreter in the Christian church that we were attending together. And she would stand at the front of this massive congregation every Sunday and she would interpret everything in sign language. And I noticed that there was always like this little group of people sitting right in front of her. So one Sunday I didn't know this girl. I went up and I met her. I introduced myself, and it turned out that they were a lesbian couple. So her wife was deaf from birth, and they had this whole little bench of foster children. She was a full-time foster mom. And she specifically took high medical need babies, some drug babies, babies born with life-threatening birth defects, I think heart diseases, spina bifida, different things like that. So really remarkable, really beautiful, compassionate woman. And she became a sign interpreter, even though has full hearing, so that she could translate the sermons of this Christian church for her deaf wife. We exchanged phone numbers, and I asked her if she had a Bible study group, and I invited her to come to ours. Now, I knew that we had had a couple Bible lessons that were really hateful towards homosexuality. So the Sunday before she was going to come to Bible study with us, I sat down with one of our Bible study teachers after our group had all dismissed. And I just mentioned to him, I said, hey, I've invited the deaf interpreter. Her and her lesbian wife are going to come with us next Sunday. So I just want to make damn sure that there's not going to be any LGBTQ hatred or another lesson like the one that happened 3 weeks ago that absolutely shocked me. And this turned into an hour-long rant from the Sunday school teacher about the evils of homosexuality, which is why I left the Mormon church. And I told him that day, I said, you are the reason why every little shred of Christian faith that I had and any good, warm, fuzzy feelings that I had about the Bible and what it does to people has just evaporated. Thank you. Thank you for providing the clarity that I needed. And I reached out to this friend and said, hey, I'm no longer going to Bible study. And then I quit the church. I really only have one rule in life. And that rule is every human deserves a chance at happiness in life. And it is unconscionable to me for a group of people to hate on another group of people just because they want to be married. And that was the end of Christianity. For me, there were other factors. Again, I was seeing holes in the Bible and holes in Christianity, and I really didn't like the impact of it on my life. So I was finally free from religion and broke up with Jesus just about 2.5 years ago now. And if it had just been me and I was a single person, that would have been just fine. Nothing really major would have happened, except Once again, I lost an entire community and found myself on the outskirts of Christianity as well as Mormonism. Not that many people break up with two major religions. I feel like there's got to be some type of a trophy or plaque I can put on my wall to acknowledge that feat. Instantly, this caused chaos in my relationship because Kevin and I had fallen in love together as Christians. Kevin loved Christian Jenny. And we went through about a 6-month time period, as many people do who have a faith transition in their relationship that was extremely painful. Faith transitions are kind of a unique, new, modern phenomenon. If you think about it, for most of human history, since religion was invented, religion was very localized. In the beginning, everybody believed in the same thing. There were state mandated religions where most people, if you were part of a cult that was on the outside fringe, then you kept that under wraps. Otherwise, off with your head. And when we did start to have more widespread travel and have religions become more canonized, more official, you started to see some mixed faith relationships, and they were often problematic. But in today's world, with so many religions accessible at our fingertips and humans more mobile than ever, then the likelihood of being in a mixed faith marriage is greater than ever. And with people scrutinizing religion more right now than they ever have before, the likelihood of any of you watching me being in a mixed faith relationship down the road, even if you aren't right now, is greater than it has ever been before. And as somebody who knows firsthand the grief and disorientation that comes when somebody that you love loses their faith in the God you love, or on the flip side, somebody you love still believes in the God that you just broke up with, it is one of the hardest things that you can ever go through. It's one of the hardest things that a human can go through. My followers who've been here from the beginning know that Kevin helped me survive my first couple years out of domestic violence. Kevin has gotten me through 7 major surgeries, multiples of those that they said that I was not going to survive. Kevin was here with me for the hundreds of blood clots, the 10-inch deep vein thrombosis, them telling us that I wasn't going to survive that. Kevin has been here through homelessness, through so many different things. And let me tell you, we have 2 ex-spouses that are complicated human beings. We have so many teenagers that sometimes love us and sometimes don't. We have a lot of things in our life. Abject poverty, a pandemic. Nothing has broken us like my transition out of the Christian church, which is one of the reasons why it's crucial for me to post content about how we survived. Because we did. And I have to say that our relationship is better than it has ever been in the entire 6 years that we've been together, for so many reasons. First of all, we've learned that we can love each other through anything. Secondly, I can be me. I don't have to put my hands in the air and sing the worship song when I'm feeling a little bit unsettled beneath the surface. I have stepped into a relationship of pure authenticity that I have never had in my entire life. And that is one of the gifts of the fractured faith marriage that nobody tells you about. If you can survive it, and if you can learn tools to navigate that faith transition, in my opinion, it is the most authentic, most connected relationship that a human being can have. It's really easy to love people who are just like you, who like the same foods, who want to watch the same things on the TV so you don't have to fight over the remote, who believe in the same God and want to go to the same vacation spots. That's really easy. Learning to compromise and learning to support any type of differences in a relationship, that can be a lot more tricky, but sometimes a lot more satisfying. Part of me feels like I need to apologize for always crying on these Kevin videos, but I cannot talk about this man without crying. So it's on you. If you keep watching videos where I talk about Kevin, you know that there's going to be widespread tears. Let me tell you about some of the messages that I get from people when I do videos about mixed faith marriages. Things like this. The unequally yoked thing comes up a lot. Sometimes just blatant, poor Kevin. Why would he be married to a heathen? This is just sick, absolutely disgusting. God says every knee shall bow and every tongue confess. So I just am holding out hope that someday you will come back to Jesus. And why doesn't Kevin leave you? A theme that I see a lot on these videos is that's so nice of Kevin. That's so loving of Kevin. That's so beautiful that Kevin stays with you. Let me play you just a couple of my videos that I've posted that have drawn this type of hatred. Why are my little atheist feet walking in the door of Christian church today? Because Kev's on the worship team and I'm here to fangirl. Mixed faith relationships are tricky AF, and I've had to learn to compartmentalize and maintain my authenticity. I don't pretend to put my hands in the air, say prayers, do anything I don't want to do, and if I don't like the sermon, I put in my headphones. I love Kevin. Is him cute on stage? You guys, I have to stay completely authentic to myself when I'm in this space. Sometimes it's authentic for me to sing along with my Henny. As long as the words aren't weird and wacky and talk about hellfire or anything like that. Here's what the compartmentalization looks like. I'm just here to be a fangirl. This is about me and Kev. This man right here. He is so cute. I don't have to feel any sort of way about religion to go to church or not go to church. Anyway, I sent tons of pictures to his mom and it was so fun. What is happening there? Coffee. Let's just drink. We took coffee. Taking idea and some are paraphrasing. These type of videos just make the Christians so angry. And I spent a lot of time this morning thinking how to script this little bridge into where I want to go. What do I want to say to the Christians? There is no need for fancy words or something to sound poetic or well written. I think I can just cut to the chase here. Stop it. It's disgusting. It's despicable. If Jesus was alive today, he would be horrified by this type of behavior. Do tend to delete these comments because I think that they're harmful for other people in mixed faith marriages who are coming to my videos. So I'm not usually a comment deleter, but that is one genre of comment that I throw away all the time. One thing that I wonder when I get these comments is, what do people want me to do with this? What do they want me to get out of it? And I think that they want to instill me with fear. First of all, they want me to feel like I suck. Like not being Christian is a defect. And if I don't correct that defect, then I'm not worthy of my partner. And then secondly, I think that they want me to repent. I think they want me to be like, oh yeah, Susie on YouTube is right. I better crack that Bible out again. I better get on my knees and pray that Jesus comes into my heart so I can just step right back into Christianity again. Otherwise, this man shouldn't be with me. I should just put him on Christian Mingle and find him a good Christian girl out there so that he doesn't have to be stuck with my disgusting atheist self. There's an interesting thing that happens when you're a content creator, and I consider this one of the greatest perks. You hear everybody's stories. In the 5 years that I've been on TikTok and YouTube and all the podcasts and documentaries and everything that I do, I have heard so many people's stories, both through my social medias and emails and comments and DMs and things like that, but also getting to know this huge community of people who've transitioned out of Mormonism and Christianity and Jehovah's Witness and evangelicism and Islam and all of these other things. I have heard more stories than I could spend a lifetime writing. In all of those stories that I've heard so many tragedies. I have a friend that I grew up with who reached out to me because he found me on social media. And he's like, oh my God, Jenny Fisher, what are you doing on here? And he had lost his faith in the Mormon church. His wife, who is a full believing Mormon, went to the bishop, and the bishop said, you need to divorce his ass right away. They've been married just as long as I'd been married. It was like, I think 26 years by the time that he reached out to me. And he did not want his marriage to end, but his wife could no longer see him as anything other than an unbeliever. And you guys, that really hit home for me because I grew up in that same type of relationship. And I actually didn't know about it until I left the church. Here's what I knew. My mom and dad had constant conflict. I tell the story about like we'd have family home evenings and my dad would read a scripture from the Bible. And then my mom would read a scripture from the Book of Mormon. And my dad would grab the Book of Mormon and throw it at the wall and say, Kathy, you said we're not going to read that thing anymore. And it was really confusing to me because he was in church every Sunday. And I didn't get the dirt until after I left the church. And my 78-year-old dad calls me one day and he says, Jenny, I stopped believing in the Mormon church at our temple wedding. My dad was a convert. He joined the church, fell in love with my mom at BYU. They got married. And his temple wedding, which in 1973 was culty as F, and you had to and make all of these weird oaths that I can't even really talk about on YouTube without my video going into a category I don't want it in, which is hilarious. That the stuff that happened inside the Mormon temple is so gross that YouTube doesn't like it floating out there in the algorithm, and my dad didn't like it floating around in his brain. So he told me that after the temple, he got in the car on the way to the reception, and he told my mom this was a cult, and I can't believe what I just witnessed, and that destroyed his faith in the Mormon church. And he had to go to church anyway. He had to fake it for my whole entire life. And I found out about this as a 46-year-old woman when my dad finally confessed, I haven't believed in the Mormon church since 1973. And the conflict that went on in my home was horrifying. And it was all because of that mixed faith marriage. In hindsight, I look back at things and it's like, oh, now that all makes sense. Like, my dad would just say, hey, I'm not going to church today. And I always just thought that my dad was sick on Sundays. And my mom would scream and cry and say, I don't have an eternal companion. And my dad was an amazing guy. He was a good father. He worked hard to provide for my mom. And he's just a cool guy. My dad is great. I haven't seen him for 7 years because my Mormon family won't let me see him because I helped him resign from the church. As a child, I saw my mom heap so much hatred on my dad and on his Baptist mom and on all of that side of the family. And I never understood why until me and my dad had that conversation. And I have seen this story play out again and again and again and again and again from all of the people who've shared their stories with me. And it's one of the most heartbreaking things in the world. The fact that anybody is completely okay with just throwing away their husband or wife because they've transitioned out of a church, to me, is sick. And the fact that people online suggest that Kevin should just throw me away simply because I don't believe in Jesus is disgusting. I don't know if you've ever heard this word before. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever heard the word faithism? Faithism, or religious superiority, religious supremacy, are obviously forms of discrimination based on religion. The United Nations is more concerned about faithism currently than they are about racism, sexism, or any of the other forms of discrimination, because faithism, religious superiority, religious supremacy, currently is leading to more widespread death and conflict around the world than anything else. Here in the United States, racism isn't really okay anymore. Now, under Donald Trump, people are trying to turn back the clock, but most of us are thankfully woke and feminist enough that we ain't having that. So there's a lot of counterbalance to the little splinter groups of faithism that, though growing and gaining popularity with our current administration, aren't as strong as they think they are. But there are still several major forms of discrimination causing conflict here in the US. Class wars in the US is a big one, discriminating against, people down here with me, discriminating against the rich, and people who have everything, discriminating against those who have nothing. The haves versus the have-nots is always going to be a big source of conflict. But second to that is faithism. People who go to church looking down on those who don't. Faithism, unfortunately, is rearing its ugly head in my comment section anytime I do a video on my mixed faith marriage. Because people don't get to know me. They don't ask, well, how do you take care of Kev? What kind of a partner are you? Does he experience love and joy in his life in ways that he never has? What type of integrity does Jenny have? What is she doing to make the world a better place? No, they don't care about any of that. All they know is, oh, Jenny says she's an atheist. She's a humanist. She's a geonatalist. And what she isn't is a Christian. So she's not worthy of Kev. They're unequally yoked and she's out. Tell me that's not despicable. Make it make sense to me why people who read a book where their mythological leader says the mark of my discipleship will be love for everybody coming out of you, then think that it's okay to dismiss, dehumanize, degrade, and discriminate against anyone who doesn't bow their knee to that mythological master. I feel like the whole situation is just so sad and so off base. And I also feel like it's really sad that religion has hijacked so many of our relationships and makes people think that they have to choose church over love. When I left church in the dust, the first thing that I found was this: without a God or beliefs or books or anything in between me and the people around me, I have closer, connected, more truly authentic, non-judgmental relationships with people than I ever have before. It's what I would have called, as Mormon or Christian, that true love of Christ, that charity. And it's ironic to me that I found that when I burned my Bible and Book of Mormon. And all that stems from the fact that I am now free to love the people that matter the most to me in life and not be triangulated against them by somebody at the top who's telling me, hey, that guy's a black sheep. That guy's unequally yoked. That guy's not worthy of you just because he hasn't confessed and professed your Lord and Savior. Or I guess in my case, it would be he hasn't professed your atheist, godless, black hole at the center of your life. All right, I'm going to be late for a podcast recording with my girls. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. I'll be hanging out there for a bit. Have a great day. Bye.